And just a reminder to all of our viewers at home, both Republican and Democratic parties will be caucusing next Monday. Less than 90 days until the Iowa caucus, I'm sure we'll see plenty of movement throughout the polls for all candidates. I spoke to 12 voters at the Buttigieg event today in Boone, and surprise, surprise, 8 of those are still undecided. Christina, I know it's hard to believe, but just about 45 minutes ago, this room was filled with over 1,200 people. Definitely one of the largest crowds I've seen for Andrew Yang. But the question is, who are really voters deciding against? Media outlets from across the country have descended right here onto Drake's campus as they prepare for tomorrow night's debate. It really was a quick process at the first satellite caucus location in Iowa. With the impending impeachment trial in the Senate, this could very well be the last time for the senators in the race to get that important face-to-face time with voters.
I'll give the precinct captains one last chance.
The state's first ever satellite caucus showed sweeping support for Senator Bernie Sanders.
14 standing for Bernie Sanders and 1 for Elizabeth Warren. The 4 delegates we qualified for went to Bernie Sanders.
The caucus held in Ottumwa's UFCW Local 230 was geared towards second shift workers who would not be able to caucus otherwise. And the majority of those voters were from the local JBS pork plant.
There's also all kinds of retail workers, service workers. A number of other employers have, people on staff at 7 o'clock, and so we wanted to make sure that they had somewhere they could go to participate in the caucus.
This satellite caucus location was open to members of the public. The only catch is you did have to pre-register by January 17th in order to participate this morning. Unfortunately, that meant that a couple people were turned away at the door.
And I felt very badly about that. Hopefully, going forward, we'll have a more sophisticated process set up where we can do the same thing we do in the regular precinct caucuses and register people as walk-ins.
It was a diverse crowd, and according to Flanders, it included voters from Africa, Latin America, and Morocco, many of them caucusing for the first time. It's very important for us Latinos to have more opportunities. It's very important for everyone. In Ottumwa, Melody Mercado, Channel 13 News. It's not the first time Iowa slipped up.
In 1980, the Republicans had their count collapse because they were using a newfangled thing called a computer to tabulate their results.
In 2012, Iowa Republicans announced Mitt Romney as the winner, only to realize it was actually Rick Santorum 8 days later. And in 2016, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders complained that delegates were awarded by a flip of the coin.
You add this element of an untested app to it, which then collapsed, phone lines jammed. It just became a fiasco.
And as of Wednesday afternoon, results were still incomplete. And with no official winner, candidates have moved on.
I don't know anybody in Iowa who's happy. And there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of money that was wasted on this. There were a lot of people who upended their lives. We derailed presidential candidates into thinking this was an important place to spend their time.
Yepsen believes it's very possible for Iowa to lose their first-in-the-nation status, at least on the Democrat side of the process.
And President Trump has said he's happy with this system. So I would expect the Republicans can have a caucus in their party in 2024. Had they done this count correctly, the Iowa Democratic Party today could be celebrating helping the first openly gay candidate come in first. A real historic day in American politics.
For Iowa to lose its status, the DNC would have to make a change to the rules, effectively removing the state as first in the nation. Iowa could continue to host a caucus, but
it'll be a little bit like, what if we gave a party and nobody came?
Justice for farmers is directly connected to the justice of suburbanites.
Senator Cory Booker, like many other Democratic candidates, has released an economic plan aimed at rural America. Although many of these plans are similar, there are some additions in the senator's plan that could greatly impact Iowans. As a part to aid in conservation in rural areas, Booker's plan includes investments in cover crops like cereal rye, something Iowa has been a national leader in. But the Iowa Farm Bureau recognizes that cost can be a barrier.
It's about time we pay farmers to do the conservation efforts that could actually get this nation out of the crisis, of the climate crisis that we're in. And that means giving them new streams of revenue to do things like cover crops, no-till farming, and those other things that we know can pull a lot of that carbon out of the air and sequester it into the soil.
Although Booker doesn't give specifics, his plan says he will end renewable fuel standard waivers that have been given to big oil companies by the Trump administration.
I'm going to bring the fight to those oil companies and stop this nonsense where renewable fuel standards and more, which really helps our nation as well as our farmers, that we don't issue these waivers and do the kind of things that undermine our overall well-being.
Booker also plans on using some of the state's methods for rural public transportation. The senator says he would test new models of community ride sharing in rural areas. According to Iowa's Department of Transportation, all 99 counties are serviced by some form of public transportation.
And there's a lot of creativity here in Iowa about how to deal with transportation issues. And so we want to find those ideas, find those best practices, and fund what's working, what Iowans are innovating upon.
In Indianola, Melody Mercado, Channel 13.